And with that, you will get a link to the recording, or at least a link to the YouTube playlist where you could watch all of our recordings. It's going to take me a while to finish converting the file and then upload it up to YouTube, so it'll probably be up there later on today. So with that, I want to welcome everyone. This is brought to you by ePanic Button, and we're going to talk about active shooter drills and best practices. And I sure hope that whatever is presented today could be utilized and may somewhere down the road help some people stay alive. Now, for a little one-on-one with the whole webinar, a little housekeeping stuff, I probably think this is going to be about 3/4 of an hour. I really do encourage discussion. So with that, there's a questions tab, and in there you could, let me make sure it's enabled. Great. Feel free. In fact, I'm requesting that you send me questions. I want to hear from you. I know there's probably very experienced people in this program or as attendees, so I want to learn from you too. Maybe I'll say something you disagree with and you want to voice your opinions. I will not say who you are when I read the questions. I'll try to read the questions verbatim, so I'm accurately reflecting your comment or question. But at the same time, you know, actually, if you want to speak, I can unmute your microphone. Everyone else is muted but me, and that just makes things better for the audio quality. But if you want to speak, let me know. I'll give you the mic. Finally, like I said, there will be a recording in there as well in the YouTube playlist, and you'll get a link to that in a little while. Briefly about me, this is brought to you by the ePanic Button, and then also I run Peace at Work. Afterwards, I'll do a little demonstration of the Panic Button. I'm not trying to sell anything to anyone, but in order for me to do these things for free, I got to let you know about some of the services that we provide. I was the workplace violence specialist for the state of North Carolina. I was the training coordinator for a violence prevention program at the UNC Chapel Hill School. Well, it's affiliated with the School of Public Health. It was their Injury Prevention Research Center, which we ran a program called Prevent, doing intentional injury prevention from a public health model. And then I was the Victim Services Coordinator at the Asheville Police Department. I'm pretty active in LinkedIn, so if there's any like in-depth questions, like if we start having a back and forth going in the communications or dialogue, then I really encourage us to continue that in a venue like LinkedIn, where we can have other professionals chime in and have a growth experience from that. All right. Okay, so naturally, I don't think I can really talk about this incident without mentioning the most recent tragedy. I was talking a little bit about this before we actually formally started the program, but in Nevada yesterday, a young man, a young boy came in with a Ruger 9mm and shot 2 students, shot a teacher, killing the teacher who was trying to intervene, and then shot and killed himself. Again, it's truly, truly tragic. The main thing is like so many schools around the nation are trying to prepare for this, trying to deal with this. You know, I'm sure there'll be some debriefings talking about how this was handled afterwards and what could have been done. But again, we keep seeing these horrible incidents occurring. However, when I did this presentation, I was really looking at different cases, and I've got thousands of cases, but I just grabbed this one because I happen to have the 911 call. And what I want to do is throughout this program is I'm going to be switching in and out of this PowerPoint to open up some audio files just so you can hear some things. I got one short video that I'll try to play as well. But with all of these raw footage, raw audio sort of clips, I want to emphasize that it can be pretty intense. And this webinar is a little different from the others I've done, that I'm sort of ramping it up with some of the graphic elements. I sure hope I don't cause any trauma with anyone, but given the nature of the topic, I hope you could all realize that some of the things we're talking about are pretty intense. I guess you might have read this blurb right now, but the thing I want to share with you was the call.
I guess he knows her. Okay, 134 transferring you, shooting with injuries at 57
Yes, ma'am.
Go down.
I'm on 911.
What's the address? It's Peaches on Cortez. I don't know what the address is. Peaches on Cortez? Peaches on Cortez. He's getting in a Jeep Cherokee. It's gray. I can't see the license plate from here. He's coming back. He's coming back. He's coming back. He just shot her again.
Okay, sorry, I know that was pretty intense right there. Now, if that sounded difficult to hear or confusing or a lot of static and noise and you couldn't follow what was going on, that was my point. I want to demonstrate or illustrate that during these incidents there is a lot of chaos, and so even we're nationally aware of this active shooter issues and maybe we have some drills going on, there's still going to be this shock, this total panic, confusion that is really a natural response to something tragic like this. So when we talk about having a plan, we're planning for something that is incredibly chaotic. Broadly, when we look at these incidents, and by the way, I've heard so many different stats, and I really try to follow up where they get these figures, but I think in general, anyone who follows these things, we generally agree that these incidents are over quickly. And how are you define that quickly? 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 10 minutes, meaning at the point of when the person first arrives and starts shooting to the point where it's over. They fled or committed suicide or were arrested. It happens very, very quickly. Now, when I said arrested, that's actually a very rare thing to happen. In the vast majority of the incidents, law enforcement does not stop the first victim from being killed. Maybe if there's a multiple long-term rampage, such as the cases that I'll illustrate, maybe officers will get there to stop the continued rampage, but you can think of other incidents like the Sandy Hook tragedy where so many people were killed, a large, over 24, but still law enforcement wasn't able to intervene. The one chance where I have seen law enforcement intervening is when it was by chance, there just happened to be an officer nearby, or more commonly, when the assailant moves from one location to the next. So they committed the shooting in one spot, they get in their vehicle, and they're going to their second target when they're intercepted. And God, I could do a program just on that. But that's the one time when I've seen law enforcement responding. My whole point, we got to have a plan in place. The people there are the ones who will have to deal with it because law enforcement most likely will not stop it or stop at least the first few homicides. However, we still want to get 911 there as soon as possible. For instance, if someone starts shooting, that could be over really quickly, but if you're looking at the window and you see someone coming towards the building with a rifle or a shotgun, that gives you those few seconds, that half minute is more additional time for the officers to arrive. So calling for backup naturally is vital. This relates, by the way, to our security planning. When people talk about response protocols, often I've even seen some saying, if there's an issue, contact management and management will decide about calling 911. I really make a more egalitarian view, meaning everyone has the authority to call 911 if you believe that there's a risk of imminent danger. Now, broadly, that was just a little example to go over the subject we're covering, but I'm going to go over active shooter drill content, so basically talking about the way to respond, issues around it. So in a sense, I guess this is an active shooter training, but I really want to do this as a model, so I don't really feel that through a webinar I can really teach this. Hopefully you get some ideas, but rather why don't you use my recording or use my slides or take what I'm taking to develop your own live in-house on-site trainings, which are a lot better than webinars. Also then pointing to some resources as well. And by the way, by no means I don't have the skill set or the intention to do any sort of tactical training for emergency response teams. This is not for law enforcement on how to respond. That's a whole other subject. But I will point you to where you can get such training. Now, the other thing I really wanted to do was talk about active shooter drills. We could talk about this this, I can use the term popularity. There's this, I don't want to use the term fad. There's a real trend now to go towards this type of training when we talk about school violence prevention or workplace violence prevention. And I want to talk about those points. With that, I really encourage people to speak up, let me know your thoughts. Please, I really don't want to just sit here and read my slides all for the next hour. Please, speak up about your views about the things I'm talking about, because maybe you disagree with what I'm saying. The main thing that I want to say is, when we look at the disclaimer, is that every situation is different. So when we say what's the best thing to do, people say I get asked a lot about developing their lockdown procedures or their active shooter drills, and it varies. Should we run? Should we hide? The truth is it depends on so much. And so the basic rule is decide what is the best avenue at that moment and in that location, and to do that you cannot panic. The reality is we're all sitting maybe nicely in our office with our coffee and air conditioning and a comfy chair, and we're going to say, well, this is what I would do if I'm dodging bullets running down the hallway. Unless you're a veteran, unless you've been a gangbanger, unless you've actually been shot at, I would question whether you would really know what you would actually do. And just in being honest with that. Again, I emphasize that to decide what is the best thing to do really depends on so many variables: who you are, your athletic ability, their shooting abilities. Okay, so when someone's making a suggestion, what would you do? Run, putting as much distance as possible. So that's correct. In a little bit, that's the general training all points to the first thing you want to do is not be there. That's true. It's funny because we talk about self-defense. People, talk about self-defense like in a combat situation. I'm like, your best defense is running. Yeah, I agree 100%. Not being there is your safest avenue. The thing I want to emphasize, even despite what happened yesterday, and it's in our psyche now about these active shooter incidents, that it's truly rare. If you look at the stats, it's much more likely to be in a car accident, or sexual assault is a big issue, or domestic or dating violence is a big thing, especially against women. But for this student to come in or a worker to come in, even though I track these things religiously every day, like 5 or 6 times a day, I'm checking my my databases for stuff. It's rare. The one point where I say it's not rare is if you have identified threat. My real emphasis is prevention and about threat assessment, warning signs, reporting. And when you have an identified threat, now I'd say, well, things are a little bit different. You've actually got someone who's talking about planning on taking you out. That's where we really want to maybe make sure we got good solid plans in place. Well, we always should, but especially when you recognize the threat. So again, this is something I don't know if it's realistic to say I'm training on this, but an obvious first thing is you have to do the best thing at that moment and in that location, and you only know that by not panicking. You listen to the 911 tape. I could show you more videotapes of shootings. By the way, video is very hard to do in these webinar scenarios just due to the technology. Just the videos don't come through. But if I could show them to you, you see people sort of sometimes running in circles, or more likely they're standing there. They're learning, they're looking around, looking at each other, and they're just standing there. And that's that shock, that disbelief. You can't believe this is happening. That you're wasting those precious seconds when, the gentleman said, run away as fast as you can. You're not running. You're doing the opposite of running. You're just standing there. And so we've got to act. Another thing that all survivors, people who have been through this, and people who train, people who, like, let's say, I've never been in the military, but military trainers talk about the belief. It's about this attitude that you will survive, even if you have 5 people surrounding you with assault rifles. You've got to give it your all, and you have to believe you will survive, and that's what gives you the energy and the momentum to get out. Now, the importance of this is not just for yourself, but panic is truly, and I hope to goodness you've never been in this situation, but panic is incredibly infectious. It spreads when one person does it, things fall apart. So it's vital that that people, everyone, at least one person, plays that role model of acting decisively and giving that leadership to others, because it's very easy for things to fall apart when there's a lot of screaming and yelling going on. The point being is, don't wait for others. Right now, let's look at the thing to do it, and act decisively. Now, about that, please understand there's a lot of things going against you. By nature, as mammals, we all have physiological responses. You may be the type to want to jump up and fight and take them out, or, the urgency be to run. Again, I mentioned the tendency for people just to stand there and freeze. While freezing is never a good option, fighting and running may be good options when it's controlled, when you make that decision and you're giving it your all. It's the panic fighting or the panic fleeing that is something we want to avoid. If I get into the nitty-gritty, what all of the models say, a lot of them use other things. They have run, hide, fight. I just chose these. These are all synonyms: escape, barricade, disarm. There's we can all think of different words, but in general, that's the order that we want to go. And again, I'm not saying maybe the best thing for you to do is to jump them and to disarm them, but that depends on the situation, how close you are, and if you could manage that. Again, that's based on your best decision by thinking clearly. If we could break this down a little bit. Another comment here. Number one, run, putting as much distance as possible between you and them. Number two, hide and barricade. Number three, here's one, pretend to be dead. Yeah, that's when you don't hear too much. So another idea is that the person's going through pretending that you're already shot, especially from these extended long-term sort of ordeals. Number four, fight back. Number five, plead for your life. Here is what's taught at property. Interesting. So that could be an issue. The question, I just have a thought, though. I think I would maybe put pleading for your life before fighting back. I don't know if while you're fighting you can then go to the next level, pleading, but maybe that's not what you meant. But that certainly could be an issue, pleading for your life. I will talk about interventions like bystander interventions in a little while, but it has occurred. Shoot, I forgot to put the slide in. Do you remember the Georgia school shooting? Yeah, because I guess he fired rounds. A guy walked into a Georgia school about 2 months ago. Was that right? About 2 months ago? And this is in how do you pronounce it? Alpharetta, I think, Georgia, outside of Atlanta. And it was the administrator, some school administrative assistant who just talked to him. And it does happen. It does work that the person gives in and decides not to continue the rampage due to that intervention. But just talking a little bit more about the escaping things, the main point is you want to leave now, not when, not should I check on something, should I get my purse, should I log off my computer, I need to save that program, do I need to send that email, finish downloading the attachment? No, leave now. Now, one factor is let me go to a couple of these points before I talk about calling. But when you do run, and if you're in their line of sight, if you see them and you feel like they're shooting at you, staying low, staying out of sight. The biggest point is getting around a corner, get out of their sight of vision as soon as possible. And just hiding behind a wall will not do it as well. If you're an interior wall, that's probably drywall or this what's that called? Drywall is the brand name. Well, you know what I mean, just like the compressed powder chalk walls, a bullet, even a .22 would go through that. So, you got to keep going if you can. If you're outside, getting behind trees, getting behind a car, especially behind the tire, behind the engine block as well. One basic issue for everything, forget about active shooter, like anywhere, for fires, tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, whatever the emergency is, always know your exits. Safety people who survive tragedies, never, ever go into a building without knowing how they can get out. Not just the way they came in, but almost due to fire regulations, almost every building is going to have good multiple exits. There's another comment, but there's a difference between cover and concealment. So that's a great point. If someone wants to explain that more, but there's just, covering yourself, in terms of like, that might be for the barricade for fire protection, and then concealment's about not being seen. I just want to skip over to one point about this thing about calling 911. Now, you may feel that you want to call 911, and I said before you should. The thing is, I bet most people have a cell phone. Let me show you what happens what might happen if you call from your office phone.
Okay, sir, go ahead.
I need to get downstairs and see what's going on.
Okay, what's the name of the business again, please?
Diversified Camping, 7171 Ruthinger Road.
Okay, we'll get somebody out there. What's your name? Can you keep me on the phone while you go downstairs?
Yes.
Just said to the time report a shot fired.
Help, bitch! Help! Help!
Deal.
Help!
What's going on, sir?
He dropped the phone. He's wrestling with him.
There's a physical altercation.
And shots fired.
Okay. So with that, one thing I just want to say real quick is, I realize that we're listening to some very personal, tragic, horrible things happening, and I never want to sort of profit from it or sort of do it in any sort of, wow, hey, check this out. Any value in this is I'm trying to emphasize to drill it into people's heads to get out of there and call from a cell phone, because in that case, the manager who called at the trucking company, he was killed in that incident. Now, given the issue, it's not just the matter he was dumb and he should have called from his cell phone. As a manager, he stuck around, sort of like a captain going down with the ship. He wasn't going to flee. He stuck around to take care of it. Okay, regarding the cover and concealment, cover gives protection, but concealment only hides. So that's an excellent point. And later on, we'll talk about this in just a moment, about the hiding factor that's very, very typical. So actually, and by the way, I'm sorry, this is really annoying that you see, like it looks good when I do it in the draft, but when I blow it up, it changes. So the point is that hiding in itself is really instinctive. I think it goes back to when we used to play hide and seek, and we all like, oh, here they come, and you duck under a desk. Sadly enough, I see so many, bodies that were of people hiding under their desks. And a wood desk, even a metal one, may not provide the protection as they shoot through them. So, you hear the shots. Oh my goodness, he's coming. I'm going to hide. If you've got those 30 seconds, if you got 15 seconds, it's amazing how far you can get in 15 seconds. Go ahead. I'd rather leave than be hiding, waiting for them to show up. I said 2 to 4 minutes, but really in 15 seconds you could make it pretty far. In this video that I've got right here, I won't show this video, but I know it's poor quality CCTV, but we've got an individual. Here's the shooter at a factory, at a plastics factory in Kentucky. Here are people hiding under the cafeteria table. Again, this is not criticism. I'm not saying look at these foolish folks. It's instinctive. You're in shock. You're not really thinking straight, right? Again, all you do is you go back to your child primitive sort of thinking, and you're like, oh, I gotta hide, and it's obviously not the best option. There are other people who fled out this door, and they survived. Now, it might be, here's some additional comments people are making. I work in an office that's on the 4th floor and only has one way in and one way out. Okay, interesting. Maybe, certainly from that floor, I imagine. It depends on the building. I would think that there might be more. Maybe a small building only has one set of stairs. I would either have to hide or fight. Which would be best? And again, I'm sorry for that question. I'm so sorry. It really all depends on who is it, how many are there, decide what is the best option, how close you are to them. I'm going to talk about hiding now, or if I could use the term barricade or cover. And I think depending upon the situation, I would try to barricade and put a barrier between me and them for most situations. But if they're real close to me, and if I felt I had a shot and I had other people working with me, I would maybe even try to take them out, or at least get a hold of the weapon. So again, it really all depends. And by the way, there's things like if I don't know the layout of the building, but if they're coming down one hallway, can you go around the other hallway or back behind them and go down the way that they came in? whatever options might be there. Another comment that says, make sure if you hide in an office, your door should be able to able to lock it and hide behind as many objects as you can. That's a great point, sort of where I'm going right here. Lock the door, and ideally a nice, thick, heavy, like real wood door or metal door. The hollow core doors are, ridiculous. You could, put your fist through it pretty easily. And then, like you're saying, hide behind objects or barricade it. One thing is that they know law enforcement is responding, unless you're really way out there in rural country where it might be 20 minutes for the nearest deputy. Most of our environments, you'll have someone, like I said, in 10 minutes. And so it's complicated. I know I'm saying 10 minutes is a long time, but it's also a short time where they're thinking, I've got to kill as many people as possible. They're not going to spend a precious minute or 2 minutes trying to get through a door. They may be going on trying to find an easier target. So yes, with a unlimited round of a 12-gauge shotgun with magnum loads, just blasting through, they'll eventually break through it, but they're going to waste that precious time, which they may decide to do something else. Ideally, I like to have any kind of place where I'm going to hide that I'm not stuck, like not a cave. I don't want to think my only way is out. If I could barricade and then have a window to go out of or go through a door. Here's another thought. A lot of places have drop ceilings, and I realize if it's just the drop ceiling stuff, you can't walk on that, but depending upon the structure of your ceiling, you can go up through your ceiling over into the next room, or over into the next building even. I mean the next business next door. So there's creative options you can think of. Call 911 if you have that opportunity. Don't assume that it was done. If they say we're covered, we're good, just let dispatch tell you what to do. There's another comment. I'm a safety guy with the same problem. I configured an office to allow a secondary egress. Ask for a safety review, and maybe it could be fixed. Absolutely. So that's a big issue. And by the way, if I want to say, fire is a very serious threat. Depending upon your industry and what you do and where you are, fire is real, and there's a good chance you could die from a fire too. So think about those second exits, other ways to get out. That's really vital. It's really important. Then make it like they can't hear you or see you. So make it so it seems like you might barricade it, and maybe if they saw you going in there, they're coming after you, but silence your cell phone. One note is that as soon as law enforcement knows about it, the media will know about it. And I'll talk a little bit later about how fast the media is, especially social media. The point is, the minute your loved ones find out there's a shooting at your school or at your office, they're coming to get you. They're going to be in their car driving to you, and they're going to be on their phone calling you. If you're hiding somewhere and your phone goes off, just try to imagine how terrible that would be. Here's another comment. The Virginia Tech shooting was 10 minutes long before the police showed up, which is really interesting. I didn't really follow that case too closely. I didn't read all the details about it, but I'm almost positive at that time Virginia Tech had their own has their own law enforcement. And then there's questions about the shootings that occurred at the dorm, and then when they knew about it, well, that's a whole other topic to go into. That's been well debriefed or discussed. But yeah, exactly. That's a really long time. I could stop talking now for 10 minutes, like here's my clock, and you can see, 10 minutes will seem like forever. I guess there's the whole thing about it when exciting moments, like, the time slows down or time speeds up, the reality of experience, it could be really different. Now, one note that I want to put out there is safe rooms. By the way, in terms of fleeing or barricading or taking them out, one question you've got to think about is, are they coming for you? Like in any situation, very often in these incidents, it could be a total random incident, but there's plenty of other cases where they have specific target, especially domestic violence. In my studies of that in the majority of the cases, the guy, and it's usually a man, who's hunting down the woman, and he's looking for her, or if you're the new boyfriend, he's heading for you. So that really changes the game about how you're going to respond, because if you know that they're specifically coming for you, that's going to emphasize other things, such as, one thing that they have for executives is executive protections are these safe rooms or panic rooms. How celebrities have these panic rooms. The idea is that I'm not sure if every industry requires one, every office, but especially if you know you're in danger, think about, if I can't flee, where could I go? Making sure that door is a solid, good, heavy door, and you got solid locks on there. If he blows out the deadbolt, then you may have this crossbar. There's also really cool little locks that go down at the bottom or of the door. It's like these tiny little like U-bar things that fit into the ground in front of the door, and that's a pretty substantial barrier as well. That's a fancy word for a phone or whatever, radio. Is just make sure that when you're in there, you could still communicate and get support. And then I would hate to be ever like locked in somewhere where I didn't have an escape personally. And then I really struggle with this. This is a personal decision. When I do lectures and I do presentations and I'm doing like some conference keynote, I stay out of this. When people are talking to me at the dinner table or at a bar, I'm like, well, the reality is that if you really are feeling danger, it depends on your policies, your situations. Small businesses can make their own decisions, but the bottom line is if someone was coming after me with a gun, I would like to have a gun too. One thing is, let's think about their gun. If they are an assailant and they are coming at you, one issue is distance. How close are you to them? Do you feel capable of taking them out? Without a doubt, it's one of the most risky things you can do. If they're randomly taking out a mass crowd of people, they'll definitely shoot at the person who's coming at them. By no means am I giving you any kind of training now on how to do this. There are trainings out there, but they're pretty dynamic. They're pretty rough. They're great, but they're for certain people, if I could put it that way. The idea, though, is I want to emphasize, no matter who you are, is acting decisively. Believe you'll take them out. Know it in your heart. And my argument, I know there's certainly people who are trained and have killed, you're talking about veterans or gangbangers who've had experience actually shooting at people. That's another thing. But most people haven't ever shot at a person. Or even any moving targets. There's plenty of cases of people, this is their first time. Maybe they went to the gun range, 3 times before they went to their workplace, but they really don't have any experience of knowing what it is to shoot a moving target. So believe you'll get out of the situation. Work with others. Throwing things. I'm a big fan of like missiles. Like there's plenty of weapons. I'm surrounded by weapons. One of the most deadly things it's around any workplace is a hot pot of coffee, which is really distracting. You throw a big pot of coffee in someone's face, it's going to get their attention. From the old days of wandering the streets of D.C. when I was a kid, having a handful of dirt in your pocket is actually, great self-defense. So the other thing you want to do is the main thing is when you're working with them, it's not like this judo chop to the neck and you're going to do some crazy wrist lock body throw. It's getting control of the weapon, pointing it down. They could be biting your ears. They could be punching you in the head. It's about your 2 hands holding that gun down and away. Other people will jump in there too, hopefully, as well to take them out. But the most important thing is getting control of the weapon. Again, I'm not saying I'm training you all about this. These are just some basic concepts that maybe you'll remember as you go through. With this, I just want to, if we were doing a live training, then I would show this. There's a pretty good clip here of a school board shooting in Florida. A guy goes to the school board meeting, claims that his wife was fired. There's some question about, well, certainly about his mental health. But while he's there, he orders all the women out of the room, somewhat, gallantly. And then then the lady comes back. Let me read one comment. Never rely on other people. If you're going to act on doing it alone with no support. That's a good point. So you can't actually guarantee, unless you're talking with them, right? You've got to, know them, your old buddies, and whatever. But that's an excellent point because that actually speaks to this point right here. I'm sorry, the clip is really poor, so I'll try to do this as best I can. This is the school shooting. So here's the guy. He comes in. He orders all the women out. And then you're going to see right here, I'll just try to, he's talking to them. The person does a really good job saying, hey, let's talk this out. Let's talk this out. I think he shows a lot of strength. This lady comes in right here. I'm just pausing it as we go through because the screen capture shares are not too great. She's sneaking up behind him with her purse. She's slipping up behind him. She swings her purse. She misses the gun, does not knock it out of his hands. He turns around, and it's really easy for me to do the armchair quarterback thing, and I hate that. You know, you're watching the game, you're like, oh, that quarterback sucks. You know, I mean, you try it. I mean, if you're there in that situation, don't blame people unless you're actually there. But given that, here we see the struggle, and if there was the opportunity for these guys to have jumped up, and he's a big guy, but if everyone piled on him, there's a chance that they would have had a shot at it. I don't know what I would have done, but she's struggling. She just collapses, and I'm not blaming her at all. He holds the gun up. They're telling her, Ginger, no, don't do this. Ginger, don't do this, and they don't move. He doesn't shoot her, thank goodness. She gets up. He just lets her walk away. No, this is really brave. So this lady comes in. I don't even think I think she was a citizen who walks in here. That's not a gun. She's holding her hand up saying, you know, can I help her? Can I help her? This lady comes up to come in there to see if he can help Ginger, which whatever you say about how they responded to this, I give them 100% credit on courage and, you know, stepping forward to try something. The emphasis I want to make here is I might have tried something a little bit more decisively, if I could speak. Now, there are cases of people talking them out, and I wish I created some slides about this. It does happen that people step up and they talk to the person out of it. When we've seen that, it's been when someone had a rapport with them, meaning they step up and they're coworkers or they know the guy, and they're saying, hey, Johnny, you know, you don't have to do this. We're here for you. Just put it down. And they talk to them. This teacher, this is the Nevada shooting that happened yesterday, is talking to the student. It's unknown if this teacher was his teacher, if he ever taught him, if, you know, if they had a personal relationship. But yeah, I imagine they knew each other. But he did try talking to the young man. He didn't try to grab the gun, and the young man shot and killed him, which is truly tragic. I guess you know, what the pundits and, you know, comments are saying is he goes to, you know, Iraq and serves in the Marine Corps and fights Al-Qaeda and terrorists and IED devices and makes it home alive from that, and then, you know, gets killed in a school. So it's pretty bad. The point is that your choice to step forward is really a personal one. And I'm not saying you should do this, you should do this. It doesn't matter what I say. You're going to do what you're going to do anyway in that reality. I'd like to think that I would step up and help, but I may just run and cry. I don't know. The point is you have to think about the decision. The one thing I do emphasize, whether you decide to intervene directly, is notify, let others know. Because if you're one of the early detectors, if you're one of the first people to know, just running away, calling law enforcement is vital, but then whatever system you have in place, I'll talk about mass notification in a little bit, but get others, help others know about it and keep the area clear. If I could emphasize another point with someone trying to intervene, this man, Robert Stewart, was hunting his ex-wife, Wanda Luck, and started shooting. She worked in a retirement home, in a nursing home, and he started shooting the poor, you know, defenseless people in wheelchairs and, you know, who can't even get out of their beds, shooting them. And this young man, another veteran, stuck around. He obviously could have run and survived, but he's pushing patients back into the rooms, barricading rooms, pushing wheelchairs out of the way, and he dies. So I just want to put that out there. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just saying the reality is it's really gallant, it's brave to do that, but there's huge risks around it too, and that's a personal choice. So what you do want to do, of course, you're hearing me again, is call 911 when you're in a surf place. I've heard of it being busy. Some people say that's impossible, but I've heard of that, you calling 911, especially mass situations like at a mall shooting or something like that. And what we want to do is provide information, just answer their questions. Of course, they want to know about the perpetrator, how many, what was their last known location, and then types of weapons as well. I'll go over that a bit more about weapons. Oh, here we go. Now, some of you may be very familiar with firearms. That's awesome. You can name like the year the model was made and the maker. For other folks, you don't really know much about guns. Broadly, very broadly, you know, the two big categories are long arms and handguns, long rifles or long arms and handguns. And with long arms, we've got shotguns and we've got rifles. Revolvers have that, you know, iconic barrel. like that, while automatics or semi-automatic rather, that bugs me so much I gotta go change that. Okay. That we need to let officers know, because it comes down to capacity and also what the officers are facing. So they certainly want to know about this information. Now, this is really important, and this gets to the point about those who plan drills. I thought this was a great idea, that people need to know what gunshots sound like, because if you see this assailant, if you see the shooter, that's a no-brainer. But the issue is that often it's heard first. So down the hallway, across the room, somewhere else in the building, they hear firecrackers, they hear balloons popping or a box falling. In manufacturing places, I've heard of like a pallet. Do you know what a pallet is? It's the wooden frame that you put product on. It's a big square pallet. Anyways, if it falls on a concrete floor, it sounds a lot like a gunshot, and that's what people say they thought that it was. And so there's value in having people understand what the different gunshots sound like. And please understand that maybe you're a hunter or you've been out to the range outdoors. Even an indoor range is going to sound different from what it sounds like inside. So here's a thought, that when you do trainings, consider firing blanks. That's just a possibility. I'm not saying it's the best idea. It depends on the situation and the people that you're with, but get people used to what the sounds sound like. For instance, a shotgun. A handgun. This is a rifle. And here's an AR-15, which people think of typically of the assault weapons, sort of the civilian M16 or M4. All right, again, I'm just sort of showing you how you could use that in your own. I don't really think I'm training you now to recognize gunshots, but the point is, get people used to what a gun sounds like indoors, so that when they hear it down the hallway, they can realize, hey, that's gunshots. Because again, seconds count. Get people moving with the plan, getting out there, calling law enforcement as soon as possible. Now, the other thing that's really vital that we do is train people on knowing how to work with responding officers. I'm not speaking for law enforcement, or I certainly can't speak to the specific team that's responding there, but in general, the protocols have changed, where it's not setting the perimeter and waiting for the SWAT team to arrive. It's sometimes waiting for the first few officers. I've heard waiting till the first 4 officers, and then I've heard from other officers saying, no, they're saying 1 or 2, just with 2 people, that's the point that you go in. In general, the one factor is they are not there to save you. They will not help you escape. They're not going to be tending to the wounded. Their first job will be to neutralize the subject, to go and find the shooter and to shoot them, to take them out. So that being said, you have to understand you do not rush up to the officers. Most likely you'll be staying low, stay down on the ground. The most important thing you do is do whatever they tell you. So I'm not going to, don't contradict, don't say, well, Johnny said I'm supposed to do this. Whatever they're telling you to do, follow through with that. But the one easy one I will tell you is show them your empty hands. The issue now is we don't know who the assailant is. Try to think about all the chaos with the Naval Yard shooting, with the Aurora shootings. Remember that there was 3 shooters, there's 2 shooters. Oh, he had an M16. No, he didn't. He had a deer rifle. There's so much chaos. They don't know what to expect. So the last thing they don't know, when you're running up to them holding your cell phone in your hand, waving it in their face, it could easily look like a firearm. Now, hopefully these are all trained and they know what to do and they got some control, but their heart rate is going. They are excited. They are sweating as well. And they see someone rushing them with something in their hand. Hopefully they keep that finger off the trigger, but they're trying to decide should they shoot you or not, and it's a split-second decision. Show your empty hands. Do what they tell you. Now, this is a little bit more about preparation, but I just had to throw it in here. One thing you can do, especially for you safety folks, for you emergency management folks, is have available for them schematics as they want to get a layout of the building. Have those layouts, the building outline, the schematics available outside your workplace, because you're going to be talking to them outside. It's no good if your plans are inside your desk. I'm a fan of keeping it in your car because you can usually get to your car pretty well, or keeping it online. You can always go to a neighborhood business, or maybe they got some iPad that they can easily pull stuff up. You can send it to them in email. Just have it available outside. The other thing, of course, you want to do is provide descriptions, what they looked like, their weapons, how many there were, last known location. Here, this involves debriefing, but for my investigative program, but don't talk to others, like other witnesses. Like, remember, think about what you saw, retain that, repeat it in your head, get your mantra, get that view, and then tell it directly to them. There is this groupthink issue where a group of people come together and they go, what did you see? Oh, what did you see? What did you see? And within 20 minutes, everybody saw the same thing, and it's not what the reality was. So just be aware of those issues. They do have cell phone guns, so they, okay, great. So there's cell phone guns. I had no idea. That's crazy. So yeah, please be aware. Don't hold anything in your hands and do what the officers, and show your hands to the officers, your empty hands. Now, a little bit outside, there are the situations where we have hostage situations, which are really different. So you got someone with a gun, but they're not pulling the trigger, such as that school shooting, the school board shooting. Don't aggravate. In that case, by the way, I really would hold off on trying to disarm them. If they're not shooting right away, that guy at that school board, he didn't want to hurt anyone, I don't think. In other cases, especially when we look at these terrorist situations like that happened in Kenya or in Russia a few years back, they have no qualms about killing you. So don't push it. Don't aggravate the situation by trying to disarm them unless you absolutely have to. Follow their instructions. Time generally is an asset. I don't do hostage negotiations. I only attended some trainings. By no means am I authority on this, but when I've learned that the more time you've got, the better off it is. You want to wear them out. They're going to feed them. Maybe they're going to drug them, whatever it might be, but let hostage negotiation handle it. However, there is be awareness there could be a dynamic entry, meaning there might be these flash grenades or these shock grenades that come in, flashbangs, that suddenly, all of a sudden, bam, everything's exploding, windows are exploding, people are coming through the wall, coming through the ceiling. Just hit the ground, show your hands, don't move. It could happen in a split second, so just be aware of that. See, there's some more comments here. It's not what you say that gets you in trouble, it's how you say it. Yep, that's true. I just did another presentation on that this morning, without a doubt. Now, broadly, I'm talking about being in the moment and what we can do, but without a doubt, and I'll say this at the end too, it's about planning that's vital. So when you do have an identified threat, again, I think these incidents are incredibly rare, unless someone just said they're planning to kill you, then things have upped a bit. Look at your workplace violence protocol. We talk about security measures and things like that in a little bit, but imagine right now where you are. If you're in your office or you're in a conference room, how would you get out? Imagine someone coming in through that front door, you hear bangs. Which exits do you have? Count on your hand how many exits. And not doors. I mean, windows count too, right? But how would you get out in a way if you needed to? One note, though, is if you have a definite assailant and you're aware of them, is you can have a description of them and their vehicle as well. We could talk about video analytics and tag reading programs and things like that. But one thing I just want to be aware of, just being cautious of slander, or I forgot if it's called libel or slander. I forgot which is which. But if you write it down, then if you say this guy's crazy and he's going to kill us all with a gun, that could be considered slander. So just be very cautious with your posting of notices about somebody. Everything always goes through your legal department. And then have a response. Get with your safety people. Have that multidisciplinary approach of saying, hey, there's a good chance of an incident happening. If it happened right now, what would we want to have in place? And means of calling 911 and stuff like that. I'm a big fan of warning systems. We'll talk about mass notification systems in a little bit. It might be that you have a lockdown process. Some people talk about a soft lockdown, or it could be a hard lockdown. Hard lockdowns certainly are more about the actual lockdown sort of barriers. Soft lockdowns are more about people staying in their rooms, but not necessarily barricading themselves in there. If you have definite targets, as I mentioned, they're after the HR manager, they're after a domestic stalking victim, then plan your your response around that target, because that's important. And maybe you want to establish a safe room. Again, depends upon your facilities. We got to look at all that. Oops. The other thing, is wrapping up this part of the presentation, I just want to say is don't panic, have a plan, and then believe that you'll survive. That's broadly in terms of the training sort of concepts. Now, if we step back and we talk about active shooter drills and mass notification systems, it's a great idea to have systems. I'm a big fan of having redundant ones. It's much better to get too many messages instead of not getting any at all. And of course, it's got to be practiced and tested. There's a technical test, and then there's the practical usage test. And there's personal messages going to people, and then there's also environmental things such as like a loudspeaker or a teleprompter. Actually, one of my favorites now are really text messages, because so many people have cell phones, and when mine goes off, I want to check to see if my kids need something or whatever. So if it hits, even if I'm in a meeting, I'm going to check it real quick just to see what it is. And I just think that text messages are pretty neat way of doing it. Oh, here's another comment. Handguns are easily concealed but hard to aim, especially under stress. Most handgun shootings occur in less than 7 yards, which is, wow, that's very close. Only 11% of assailants and 25% of police bullets hit their intended target. The measured fatality rate is under 15% for criminal gunshot wounding. So look at that, 15% of all the shots, of all those shoots, only 15 lead to someone dying, and then 11% of those assailants, when it's an assailant shooting, actually hitting their target. And you're right, shooting a handgun is very difficult. I know there's some people who are good at it, and you just hope that it's not one of those who's coming after you. But for most folks, especially like you said, under stress, it's really difficult. Whatever your mass notification system is, of course, have a policy in place and decide who and when will execute it, and have a plan to do it. Now, I want to talk a little bit about drills. If you're thinking of doing a drill, or you do drills yourself, or your mass notifications, let's talk about you manager types in doing these. So this isn't about the frontline training. This is for you, the managers. It's vital to practice it. One of the most important things you got to realize is that whatever you plan, that's the first casualty. I don't know who said this, Patton or some great military commander. The first casualty in any crisis is the plan. So the point is, a friend of mine, August Vernon out of Winston-Salem, emergency management, he came up, I don't know if he came up with this phrase, but I heard him say it once. He goes, it's better to have a good team than a good plan, because the plan could go, and then what you got left is just the people who are going to be coming up with the next plan on the go. So good people, and then those good people working together as well. One thing that I've done when I've been involved with active shooter drills is I like to throw in confusion, because it is confusing. I want you all to think about the Naval Yard shooting. Remember, there were 3 shooters and there were 2. He had a machine gun or a fully automatic assault rifle. None of that was true, right? Because there's so much false information going on. So when the commanders are trying to deal with this, so if you're emergency management, that's a separate, if you're law enforcement, that's a separate thing going on there with the emergency response teams. But even among your crisis management for your company or your school, realize you're going to be getting false information. How do you verify it? How do you utilize it? I'm more of a fan of saying, go ahead and get the false information out there, saying, yeah, it's yet to be verified, but, try to verify it, but I guess it really depends. I would say I'd like to let people know, hey, we just got this. We don't know if it's true, but this is what's going on to the best of our knowledge. We'll update you as we find out that it's veracity. If you choose to do it, do non-busy days, low traffic areas. The one thing where you can get a lot of attention, where you can get a lot of help from management, the upper management, like the C-suite folks, is business continuity. So if they're saying, hey, I don't know if we want to do this active shooter drill, you're going to scare people, we got a lot going on. Business continuity is a critical element of any organization. And this is about, like, if there's a disruption, any kind of disruption, how does the business, the entity, continue doing what it does? And that's vital if you're C-level suite doesn't understand that, then well, I'm sure that they do. With that is you could run this you can get buy-in from your colleagues to do things for them. I know people are like, oh, that security, crazy SEAL Team 6 wannabe guy wants to run another active shooter drill. I'm just teasing you all, but you know what I mean, that sort of attitude. Talk to the IT folks. They want to be practicing their hotspot transfer, meaning all your database, all your servers might be in one location, and let's say that floods. Well, they got to run it to their backup server and see, can you run your business on that backup server? Great thing to test. Medical responders, it's great to have them practice things. It's really vital to not only think about the violent aspect, but about the trauma and the care. The first responder trainings are vital in terms of first responder for medical. And then my favorite, I love this part. Get your public relations people out there. Shove a camera in front of the CEO and say, what happened here? Why didn't you know about it? And this is your fault. And then have that CEO or the executive director know how to respond. So did you happen to know that the shooter was your personal assistant that you paid 3 times the average salary for? What do you have to say to that? I mean, get them used to responding to these cameras in their face as well. Bring in other observers. Obviously, law enforcement loves to work with you. You can bring in outside law enforcement, state law enforcement, even federal agencies as well. And as I mentioned, I said this, throw in false information. By the way, when I have done these, it turns out I didn't have to do it. I had all these back pocket lies or false information myths in there, and then I didn't even have to pull it out of my pocket because there's all this false information flying around anywhere. They're like, Johnny, did you throw that in there? I'm like, I didn't do that. I didn't know where that came from. So it's interesting. All right, I'm wrapping stuff up here, but I really want to emphasize one point. Please do not do an unannounced or under-announced drill. There's this whole idea that we're going to make it real. We're going to really see what it's like, and we're going to see if they really got it tested. I mean, that's fine for the military. That's fine for law enforcement. For your average Joe employee or Joanne employee, you're going to possibly induce a heart attack. Heaven forbid if there's an armed bystander who thinks it's real and then they pull out their piece and end up shooting an officer. I've never heard of that, but I totally can see that happening. Just to give you some examples, Elizabeth State University tried this, and they had to offer all this counseling, and I think there's been lawsuits, maybe not in this case, but in other cases. And they said they announced it. They said they got an email out 5 days before. They said they're going to do some drills, like they're going to do some practice. And that's all the people knew about. 5 days later, a guy walks into a gun, puts kids up against the wall. Bad idea. Here's another officer who walks into a store wearing a ski mask and has a fake gun, and he's coming in there just testing people how they would deal. Oh, no, it's the health department. I'm sorry, it was at the store. But it was at the health department. You know what? That guy's looking for a job right now. It says he's suspended, but I think he got let go. Folks, I'm sorry I'm running a little late, but I do want to emphasize one really important thing. It's about the whole concept of social media. The entire emergency management active shooter thing has been, well, I guess it's always been around since active shooter's been known, and then, social media. The point is, here's the Austin, UT at Austin campus shooting. And what do we see? What do we see when we've got a person on campus with a gun? What are we doing? What's going on? And what are people trying to do at this point? I've got other people holding up their cameras, capturing the minute, and what this is doing is it's changing how you deal with it. For instance, in Delaware, earlier this year, at the courthouse, we have an attorney who's an author. She's trying to get her name out there. She's trying to build up her Twitter feed, and this was like gold mine for her. During a shooting where she's active, she's tweeting like mad. I'm not saying that she's doing this for her own publicity, but, people are following her. And what she's doing, she's giving information. I have another case of like a deputy governor tweeting from his rooftop office or his top floor office, giving the locations of the sniper teams, of the sharpshooters, telling about where they're located on the buildings. Another element is, please understand that with the hostages and the assailants, they are also using social media as well. So it's part of the emergency response. We have a guy who walks into a law firm, I'm pretty sure, and I'm pretty sure it's a law firm, and he holds some people hostage. He's Facebooking with people during the hostage situation. So forget about, getting him a radio and you're talking to the hostage negotiator. He's talking to the world. He's signing up friends. Klein now has 8 more friends, right? People are doing friend requests. He's joining them and he's talking to them. Actually, this worked out because his friends, his real friends, did this. Listen, man, give it up. Stop doing this. It ain't worth it. We care about you, man. And I'd argue this is what actually saved him. This is what got him to put down his gun. But just be aware, while you're dealing with everything else, think about actually checking Facebook as well. Wrapping things up, I just want to talk about active shooter things in general. I just want to say that when we're doing this, there's benefits to doing it as well, but forcing them on people. That's a big thing, I believe, with the drills is find volunteers. I have to say I'm a little hesitant. I have to be honest with you. I've got kids in school. When I heard about them doing the active shooter drills in their schools, I had mixed feelings about it. And some of it is about, what is being well, there's a lot of reasons. Call me and I'll tell you directly what I think. But there's risk of traumatization. I think it's wonderful. I think it's awesome for law enforcement and emergency management. We got to practice these things for us emergency responders and us security people. But I'll tell you, I don't think this 1-hour webinar or 15-minute video or half a day training is really effectively training as a learning objective. By no means do I feel like I trained you all to survive an active shooter event. And that's what I can hope to do, is that maybe some little nugget, something you remember, if you're ever in these horrible situations, you'll remember, oh, this is what I should do, and I'll act. That's why it's really important to keep things simple. Simple little things like run, hide, fight. Simple things to remember. Turn off your cell phone. Things like that might help. But we got to recognize the issues. By far, one of my concerns about active shooter drills is that if I'm given an hour for workplace violence training with a company and they say do an active shooter drill, I'm not given the time to talk about warning signs, talking about red flags, talking about reporting procedures, talking about threat assessment, talking about risk analysis, talking about de-escalation of hostile behavior. We're not addressing prevention, and that's one of the risks. I'm fine. Let's totally do active shooter drills as much as we can. We cannot let prevention slip to the wayside. Active shooter drills are preparation, and by no means is it any sense prevention. So that's my little spiel. That being said, let me give you just some resources. There's tons of videos out there. There's professional meaning company-based ones, private enterprise produced videos that are out there. And then, of course, you're aware of DHS's programs done in Alabama, Texas, and somewhere in the Northeast or Mid-Atlantic. They've been sponsoring those things. So YouTube it. It's all free. The other thing I want to emphasize, again, talking about prevention, is some colleagues, Carolyn Ramsey Hamilton, runs Risk and Security LLC, and tomorrow, mañana, she's doing a program on assessing your risk for this, a little bit talking about active shooter, but she's also going to be discussing the larger issue about risk analysis. And in the email you'll get in about an hour from now, you'll have the registration link where you can join that incident. Now, if you are, boy, I hate when it does this. If you all are law enforcement officers, the one great training that I've heard about, I haven't been through it, but I did meet the trainer, or at least the president, is through the National Association of School Resource Officers. They have SRO active shooter response courses, and I believe it's 2 days, if I'm not mistaken, and it's live, so they do a classroom, like a PowerPoint presentation kind of thing, and then they have a practical, like getting out there and actually dealing with it. And so check them out. This link is in the email you'll be sent as well. And there's plenty of other organizations, but a lot of the attention comes around schools. And I imagine if you're not involved directly with schools, I'm sure you can get into this program as well, find out about it so you can get this training. I just know this one personally because I know the organization is just down the road from me. Golly, hey, where is it? It's a little bit over. I apologize for going late. But if there's any questions, again, you all will get a copy of the video, and you should have gotten before and afterwards. You'll get a link to this actual presentation. I think there's things you can do like download. I think one of the buttons you click says download, so you can use it as well. Hey, I don't mind if people use my stuff. That's fine. You know, I'd appreciate some credit, but you know, the main thing is if it could help save a life, that's the awesome thing. If we could look at doing that. Sort of hesitating to see if there's any questions. Hopefully you might have found this valuable. I sure enjoyed doing this program. The emphasis I want to say is, again, thank you so much for joining. This is brought to you by the Panic Button. And I'll do a little demo first, but I don't want to do any sales. Just check out this great program. And by the way, it could be used. Oh, thank you. I'm getting some thank yous. You are most welcome. I do appreciate that. I really enjoy doing these programs. I'll just keep talking. But if you have any questions, I'll keep my eye on the questions tab to see if any come in there. You know, I don't have it running right now, so let me launch it real quick. Boom. So, oh, that's because I've got too many programs running. There we go. That happens when I've got two. Yep, because I got two buttons with the same hotkey. Okay, folks, let's say you're in danger and you see someone coming. You can just mouse over this icon and click. Also, all of these have as a corresponding hotkey, so you can do like Control F5 and it'll launch it off, or whatever combo you want, Shift 9, you know, whatever. But I'll click this, and we get this pop up. It booms. And it gets your attention, and it says, you know, security needed, who sent it, where they are, and you can change this. You can change the system to whatever you want. I just got my text on my phone, and I will show you, well, I'm not going to show you my email because it's probably something embarrassing from a friend of mine, but this is a great little system that you could test out. It's free to test, so if you want to try it out, I think there's something in the email you'll get to. Just hit me back, and I'd be glad to set you up. Can you get a copy of the 911 audio? You know what? That first clip, it's on. I uploaded it to YouTube. Where's in my email there is playlists. I've got where is it? Webinar recordings. What I'll probably do is put it under my training clips and put that in there. So it'll be in. I think I just put it in my uploads. There it is. So there's one. There's the other. There's the other. So what I'm going to do, oh, it says failed. Oh, not able to convert to a video file because I need an image. I'll just send it to you. Send me an email. Reply back to my email, and then I'll just send it to you, and I'll upload it. Or I'll try to fix it on YouTube. Oh, someone's saying, oh, someone had an experience about a lockdown initiated by the police department, and they forgot to tell you that the threat was over. Oh, that's horrible. So, yeah, that's another issue. Golly, I never even thought about that. I mean, I have like seen that in the drills because it was always taken care of. When there's a lockdown, obviously you need to have a system to let everyone know when it's over. Yes, debriefing is vital. By the way, you know, to me, trainings are good and preparing is good. The best educator, the best way to learn is from experience. Well, hopefully never shooting, but when you do the drills, debriefing. You know what? Go ahead and throw something out there, put something out there, plan a little bit, put it out there, see what you get back. Your best learnings will be from the debrief afterwards. I should create a slide about that. Thank you. Very good. I got your email address, and I'll figure out a way to send it to you. So thanks so much, everyone. I really appreciate your time. It's a lovely day out there. I think I'm going to try to go enjoy it. And you all stay safe. I got a bunch more programs coming up. Please sign up for them. And then go check out my new YouTube playlist. I got one called Incident Review. So what I do is I look at recent incidents, and I've got a few more to upload, actually. And we'll look at these incidents, and we can see what we can learn from it. So thank you. Stay safe, and I'll talk to you all later. All right, take care. Bye-bye.